Bound to a god's shadow gnawing at their bones, Book of Cain, Chapter of Oaths, the admiral's coat ripples under stormlight. Hisses against bound to a god's whetstone. Bones, 3 figures anchor the guild's mandate, hunter, handler, harrower. The 5 lords did not conquer the old world, they borrowed its breath, bound to a god's shadow gnawing at their bones. The guild tracks something that walks unseen through every scar it leaves. Legends do not forge legends, they barter for them. The 5 lords did not hunt monsters, they herded nightmares, each signature triumph a thread in a tapestry of dark oaths. What did they sacrifice? Blood, sanity, names. The texts whisper a price paid in full. When Fatalis raised Shrade, it was not where it was reckoning. A god's patience spent, now the ruins breathe. The pacts that made hunters legends still pulse beneath stone. The guild's maps trace more than trails, they trace a hunger. The fallen walks not as conqueror but as collector. His due is never fully paid, and the 5, their names erode. Their shadows stretch, their ghosts still hear his voice. The guild's academy carved its halls from a dead kingdom's bones. The Shrade fall was not war or plague, it was erasure. Fatalis did not attack, it consumed. What remained were ashen questions. The guild did not mourn, they catalogued. Monsters were not enemies. They were variables in an unbalanced equation. The 5 lords' village knew this truth. Their children grew up among furs and charts, taught survival meant reading the beast's rhythm. The research commission offered purpose. 5 stood apart. Chosen not for hearts or minds, but for blood, the pact was inked in a language older than the academy's stones. The cost. A debt paid in fragments, memories, names, pieces of the soul. The god's voice did not leave them. It nested. Now every strike, every legend etched in bone is a verse in his ledger. The guild calls it balance, the ruins know better. Something stirs in the math, a remainder unseen, a god counts. The equal dragon failed, the guild's blade recoiled in its sheath. A construct meant to sever the elder's reign became a carcass gnawed by the very balance it sought to slay. The 5 did not weep, they carved a new path through the guild's bones, a pact, a price. A god's whisper in the marrow of their blades, what is a legend but a wound that never clots? They hunted not as knights, but as vector scarers of a poison that bloomed in their veins. The first hunt a behemoth king, its roar a seismic hymn. The 5 circled, the god's breath coiled their sinews, the monster fell. The earth exhaled, the guild named them lords, the old world named them harbingers. A pact is a ledger. The 5 wrote theirs in blood, not their own, the gods, a currency extracted from his dreaming form bound to their purpose. Each strike against the elder's children fed the debt, each victory a shackle. The monsters did not scream, they roared, they thrived. The guild scholars muttered of balance, the ruins held their breath. Did the 5 know the god would wake? Or did they wish, in their hunger for ascension, that he would? The first expedition into the ashen wastes was no crusade. It was a reckoning, a procession of 5 shadows, their weapons humming with stolen divinity. The old world's predators turned their eyes. Not fear, recognition. The god walks now, not in halls but in the gaps between heartbeats. His eyes are the 5's. His voice, the guild's, the equal dragon was a warning. The blood pact was a reply. The ledger is not settled. The god counts. The 5 lords stood at the threshold. Power or ruin, dominion or oblivion. They chose the blade, they chose the blood. The old world fractures still bear their sigil, a coiled serpent devouring its own tail. The corrupted force they bound was not a monster. It was a reckoning. Each lord spilled their line's first blood. The ritual carved a hollow in the earth. The sky burned green. The guild's ledgers call it the pact of 5 points. The truth, a god's throat was cut. His name is not recorded. His pain became their strength. The old texts whisper of Nakarko's fall. The 4 lords' era ended not with a war but a wound. When the 5 rose, the world's bones cracked, mountains split, rivers reversed. The calamity's not a footnote, it's the reason the guild buries black dragon studies. Too many sought answers, few returned. The pact demanded more than blood, it required silence. Each victory, each triumph over scaled beasts was a debt paid in stolen breath. The 5 lords' blades gleamed with stolen divinity, their names etched into legends, their shadows into curses. The guild's fear is a living thing. No scholar may classify the black dragons. No hunter may track their kin. The beasts are not kin, they are the god's voice unchained, a chorus of wounds, the ruins of the old world still hum. Not with memory, with hunger, the Five Lords' choice did not bind the corrupted force, it anchored it, a storm in stasis. A nameless weight pressing against the world's skin. The cold opens truth, the Five Lords did not conquer a god. They dressed his corpse in armor, now every scar on the earth is his heartbeat, every hunted dragon a syllable of his name. The ledger is not settled, the god counts. The wilderness remembers, the ruins of the old world whisper of ancient bargains. The Five Lords' glory was not won, it was bought with a blood-soaked vow to a god who fell, not in defeat, but in hunger. Now in Wyveria's forbidden lands, the earth cracks open. He walks the bones of the old world, ledger in claw, counting every hunted breath. What does the god owe you when the hunt is done? The equal dragon's core glowed like a dying star, its light fraying to smoke. Hunters swore they heard it scream high, metallic, a sound that cracked windows in villages miles away. When the weapon detonated, the blast left a crater where the Elder's lair had been. The guild's forges still reek of burnt ozone, a scent that clings to leather and bone. No one spoke of the 6 hunters lost in that light, their armor was never recovered, some say it fused with the earth. Others say it waits, buried beneath the ash, humming with unfinished rage. In the Gore Magala swamps, the frenzy virus spread like rot in a wound. Infected hunters left trails of blackened blood, their screams dissolving into gurgles. The stench of decay turned the air thick, a sickness that clung to robes and seeped into dreams. One veteran, branded with the virus, clawed at his face until his fingers fell away. They found him whispering, "It's not the monsters, it's the cure." The guild quarantined the region, but the taint had already seeped into the rivers. The Five Lords' pact was no grand ceremony. It was a hunger traded in silence, a god who needed no name, only obedience. Their victories were his ledger entries, scored in blood. The equal dragon was their first debt, the frenzy their second. And still the god watches, from the craters, from the swamps. From the hollow eyes of every hunter who returns, one less soul than they bore, the forge's heat still clings to their bones. A reminder, pride is a weapon that burns its wielder first. The forge's embers hissed like dying things. Smoke clung to the Lord's furrowed brows, acrid and sweet, a paradox of creation and rot. Their hands, once steady on bow and blade, now trembled with the weight of scrolls inked in wyvern bile. The guild's council chamber echoed with the rasp of quills, each stroke a compromise between preservation and annihilation. They had hunted monsters to save the world. Now they hunted hunger, disease, the slow unraveling of Wyveria's green lungs. But the old hunger still gnawed. A moonless night, the five stood in the ruins of a nameless altar. The god's voice was the creak of dead trees, the wet gasp of wind through shattered stone. Power, it hissed, is not a tool, it is a host. A knife sliced palm to palm, their blood a thin red river in the dust. The god drank and the world shifted. Visions of antediluvian forests, of Wyverians tending leviathans like gardeners, flooded their minds. Coins, but in of memory each kill would feed the Wyverian's god, leviathans each like victory a tether. The first hunt after the pact was a blur of crimson mist. When the fog cleared, the guild's new leader knelt in the snow, a elder dragon's fang in her fist. The beast's blood had not spattered, it pooled, then seeped into the earth like rain, a ritual, a lesson. Wyveria had not conquered nature, it had asterisk conversed asterisk with it. The lords burned their old tools, forged new ones from bone and star iron. Yet in quiet moments a shadow hums in their veins. The god walks still, not in flesh but in the gaps between heartbeats. When a lord carves a path through blight, the wind whispers asterisk debt asterisk in the rustle of leaves. They built a sanctuary. They became its wardens, but every gate needs a gatekeeper, and some doors, once opened, never close fully. The five lords' pact did not fade with their bones. Their blood stains the earth where Wyveria sleeps, a tether to a will that gnaws at the edges of the old world's collapse. The guild now patrols these ruins not as scholars, but as dam builder chasing balance in a river that seeks to flood. Ethics are a luxury when leviathans stir. Forbidden Lands expeditions report glyphs pulsing with a hunger that predates the first hunt. Astra Command has ordered containment. Kamura's retirement, once a symbol of peace, now reads as a withdrawal, leaders retreating into vaults as the ground cracks behind them. The guild's wildlife mandates falter against what emerges, not beasts but shadows with the weight of oaths broken. A single pauper in ash, a hunter's sigil defaced, a whisper in the wind that tastes of iron. The corrupted god does not slumber. He waits, coiled in the spaces between stone and bone, his patience a blade sharpened by centuries of debt unpaid. The expedition digs, watches, and beneath every footprint, the land remembers the price of a blood pact paid in legends and in lives yet to be lost. The admiral's hand rests on the commander's blade, a pact's shadow stretches between them. The five lords stood here once, their names carved into stone now crumbling beneath ivy's grip. The guild does not hunt monsters. It calibrates the balance between fang and forge, between the wild's hunger and the world's need to forget. But balance is a lie polished by blood. The fallen god did not grant power, he leased it. A price paid in years and names, in the quiet unraveling of those who dared to wield what was never theirs. The five lords' blades cut through legends, yes, but their shadows grew longer with every kill. The wilderness remembers, not as humans do. It remembers in the tilt of a tree, the fracture in a rock, the way the air hums when no wind moves. The ruins of the old world are not empty, they breathe. The admiral sees it, the commander feels it. Their counterparts once did too. Until the weight of the lease became a yoke, until the god's ledger demanded more than bone and steel. The guild calls it management, the land calls it a debt. What becomes of a god cast down, not dust, not silence. A watcher, a thread woven into every blade sharpened, every trap set, every heartbeat that echoes where the five lords fell. The mirror here does not reflect, it reveals. The price is not paid in gold or glory. It is paid in lives yet to be torn from the tapestry. The admiral and the commander stand at the threshold. Behind them the guild's edicts, before them the wild's unblinking gaze. And between, the god who was a man who was a weapon, waiting for the next hunters to whisper his name into the dark. The guild's blades carve balance, not carnage. Beneath pine-scented frost, a tracker presses a palm to a scarred oak tree's bark, still weeping amber resin from a pact sealed in ancient blood. The forest holds its breath between strike and recoil, between the hunter's prayer and the beast's roar. A younger hunter once asked, *, why not kill them all? *, his mentor's reply lingered in the smoke of the campfire. *, some predators keep the field healthy. So do we, *, in the hollow where the five lords knelt. The earth bears dent-like craters where their knees met soil. The air there hums lower, a bass thrum in the bones of the hills. They gave their names, their lineage, their firstborns right to the god who had learned to hunger as men do. His voice was a rusted blade through their oaths. Now their descendants wield power that reeks of burnt honey and iron, a gift that curdles in the blood when the kill is too easy. A sentinel stands watch at the edge of a marsh, her cloak stiff with brine and something thicker, darker. She knows the ruins whisper when she passes. They sing of a debt unpaid, of a god who trades in futures. The guild does not ask why the five lords' line still breeds warriors. They only hunt, only regulate, only ensure the old pacts do not unravel. The wilderness remembers. The cold in the shadow of the hunter's axe is a little colder than the rest. The cold clung to their armor like a curse. In the forbidden land's ruins, the air reeked of iron and old ash. A hunter's axe bit deeply at the stone, bled not red, but black. They found Wyveria's bones first, then the pact, a sigil burned into stone, still warm. Somewhere, a whisper coiled like smoke. The fallen god's eyes, twin craters of ashen light, have never closed. His breath festers in every